Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So April is National Financial Literacy Month and I want to celebrate it the right way. So I have teamed up with my girl E.Michelle, and for the entire month of April, every Monday we are going to be bringing you guys a video that is finance related in nature. I'm going to be talking about the exact same topics that she's going to be talking about. We're just going to be sharing them on our different platforms and our different channels because, well, we have different channels and different platforms, but also because her tips and tricks and things of the sort are definitely more than likely going to be very different from mine because we do things a little bit differently. What I would also like to mention before we go any further is that we are making our next stop on our budget workshop, Budget Mrs. World Tour whole thing in New York, and that is going to be Saturday, May 18th. Tickets can be found on my website, which is shaybudgets.com, or her website, which is ElaineMichelle.com. So don't forget to get your ticket if you want to be in attendance, and we will see you guys in May. But without further ado, let's hop right into the video. Okay, so today I'm here to talk about why I got started with budgeting. And so I think I've shared this with you guys before, but because we wanted to do this series, we thought that it would be important to kind of preface it with the reasoning behind why we got started, why the two of us got started, why she got started, you know, living her own life because she was starting on her financial freedom journey before she met me or before we met, and why I decided to get started. Now, when I talk about I'm really talking about we because I'm married, but when she's talking about she is talking about I. So definitely, like I said, it's worth checking out both of our videos and both of our series. So I would like to say that I have always been motivated to really kind of make my money work for me instead of just working for my money all the time, because I feel like we can get into that habit of living paycheck to paycheck and just working and paying bills and all of those types of things. And I've never really been interested in that because it just sounds like a life that I'm really not trying to live, although a life that was all too familiar when I was growing up, and it just really wasn't a life that I was really trying to live. I saw that in my own home and I wasn't really here for it. So I've always been kind of motivated to really meet some financial goals and do some things with my money, make some money and make the money do great things for me. And so I feel like the vision became a little clearer for me whenever I realized that I wanted to go to college. So I went and did the whole college thing, and that's pretty much when it was that I was kind of forced to start budgeting, because that's when I got a car and an apartment my junior year and all of those types of things. So I was kind of living on my own at that point basically, and I needed to learn to budget. So I would always say that, I mean, I've never asked anybody for bill money outside of maybe my mom. I maybe asked her for money. I've never asked anybody to pay a bill. No one's ever paid a bill for me, and I've been around for almost 30 years and I've never asked anyone to pay a bill. I'm only saying maybe I asked my mom, but I don't really know that I don't remember that actually happening. So I'm not sure if I did that a whole lot. I do remember she pretty much paid my cell phone bill most months. Sometimes it would be my responsibility to pay the bill together because we were under the same plan. So some months I would pay it, but for the most part she always told me she would at least look out in that aspect. But as for my car insurance, because she bought me my car, she said that I would have to pay my car insurance. I had to pay my rent. No one's ever paid my rent ever to this day. And all of that jazz. So I was kind of like forced to start managing my money. And when I got my first like full-time job my junior year, or almost my junior year, maybe like almost my junior year, it was pretty much go time. So I don't know that I've ever I for sure have not been one to need help for paying rent or bills, or not able to pay my bills and stuff like that. I just would pretty much spend whatever was left like I had no business doing. So any little bit of money that I had left over, now don't get me wrong, there were times where I could save money to go on a trip. Listen, your girl could save to go on a trip. Your girl saved $5,000 as a single person in February, March, April, May, June, 5 months to move to Georgia, because I wasn't coming without at least $5,000. I don't know where I got that number from, but that's the number that I put in my head. So there were times where I could do right, but for the most part, I was budgeting looking at how much money was coming in when I had a minimum wage job, it wasn't that difficult. It was going to be about $1,000 no matter how you sliced it. I was looking at my expenses and the money going out. I was pretty much using like the little note section in my iPhone at that point. Sometimes I would write it down on like a regular piece of paper so I could see it more clearly and adjust better and scratch out and erase and that kind of thing, highlight that stuff. But for the most part, like I said, I was budgeting, but it just wasn't really working out that well. There was once a time where I just didn't have enough money when I made minimum wage. But as my income started to increase, I was able to make more money, and I would still budget the same way, but I still would spend more money. I just wasn't really making any progress. And I would say that, I didn't make any real financial gains up until my husband and I started budgeting. So when I met my husband, one of our very first conversations was about finances. And that's because we stayed friends for a year, because he was in the friend zone for a year because I didn't really think that he was my type. Turns out he's literally the exact same person as me, just in a male's body. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But we were friends for so long, and we would talk about anything and everything, which we still can do that to this day. And I remembered us talking about finances. I'm not really sure why, but we were talking about like credit scores and how we're going to buy our first house, and not our first house together because we were friends, but like how I was going to do my first house situation and how he was going to do his, and this and the third. And I just remembered his conversations being more so like cash oriented and not like heavily dependent on debt or credit or anything like that. And so he stayed that same person up until the day that we got married. And we had conversations up until the day that we got married about what our finances were going to look like once we got married. Because as we all know, the number one cause of divorce is finances. And we, since we started talking about getting married and all of that, we had been pretty much committed to like making our marriage work. And so we definitely didn't want our marriage to fail because of finances. And I remember my husband would tell me, he would basically try to get on to me when we weren't married about maybe not spending as much money or this or that and the third. And I would kind of be like, yeah, well, whatever. Holla at me when you put a ring on it, or holla at me when I walk down the aisle, or whatever the case is. And that day came when we got married and he put a ring on it and all that other good stuff. And that was November of 2016. And so that is when I really started to think about doing better with my money, because it was more than just me that was going to be affected if I did not do so. My husband would, and his quality of life. Our marriage will be affected. My quality of life would be affected. If we had children, if we made it to that point, if I kept spending how I was spending and living how I was living, they would be affected. And, I started to think about, and if you grew up like me, then maybe you can relate. I didn't grow up with any money, so I saw the struggle. But we didn't really have any money to like actually budget or really even live off of, to be honest. So I started to think about, I didn't want that life for my potential children or even myself when I got older. But I started to think about, if I'm making money, more money than maybe my parents did, but I'm blowing it and I don't have any just the same as they didn't have any, what is the difference? Like, just because I make money and I blow it all and I don't have any, like, there's no difference in the quality of life or those different lifestyles. If you're making however much money and you spend it all on whatever, you're not saving any or actively paying down debt or really trying to increase your financial situation, then you're pretty much, then for me, I'm speaking for myself, if that was the life that I was going to be living, then I was pretty much just going to be reliving my childhood and providing the same type of lifestyle to my children. If I were to bear children, to have children or whatever. That was just a thought that kind of came to mind. Like, what's the difference? That was an epiphany that I had somewhere along the line. Like, what's the difference in my reckless spending and having no money than my parents' just not having any money to recklessly spend? There's really no difference outside of maybe I've always been the type to at least pay all my bills and then spend the money, whereas my parents sometimes didn't have any money to do that. So that's pretty much the only difference. But when it all comes down to it, you know, if you took my situation, you know, before I got married, and my parents' situation, you know, whenever they were maybe in a hard spot, at the end of the month, the end of our months would look the exact same. There would be no money, nothing to show for any work that had taken place during the month, if that makes any sense. That for me was like motivation enough to really get my behind in gear. And so whenever we got married, we went ahead and combined finances, and we were serious about budgeting. So again, I have always pretty much budgeted, although not that well. My husband has never budgeted. So even today, I don't know that he like really understands it at a level that maybe I understand the idea behind budgeting and why it's imperative, because he doesn't really need to budget, if you will. I believe that everyone needs to budget, but because he is not a spender and he doesn't really spend money, and he already has an investment mindset and a savings mindset, budgeting for him isn't as imperative as it is for me. So without budgeting, I would be just out spending recklessly. I could count on him to not do so. So there's just kind of a difference. Again, I was budgeting, trying to stay afloat and make sure my bills were paid and making sure I had enough to live my best life. He was not budgeting, and still in a better predicament than I am. But anyway, whenever we got married, I was able to learn budgeting and how to do it a little bit more, and he was able to learn from me, and we were able to really kind of get started. So I would say realizing that my life and the one that I wanted, I would have to do some things differently if I wanted to really separate or to leave behind the poverty-stricken lifestyle, if that makes sense. And like I said, if you take a person who has limited funds, let's say a person living off of a check each month, a disability check or whatever. You know, my mom was living on a disability check before she passed away. Let's take her, and then let's take a person who's making $2,000 a month, and at the end of this person's month, they have saved $100, because I'm using that as an example, because that's whenever I started to teach my mom about budgeting, she was able to save like $100 every month, which is pretty good. And, you know, take this person's situation, and they're making double, triple the amount of money, and they're ending their month with no money. They're not saving any money. There's really no difference, you know, as far as that goes. In fact, this person's probably doing a little bit better. I'm just saying, like, that's just where my mind was going. That's where I was starting to think about, like, you know, I'm really gonna have to make a change if I really want to make a change. Otherwise, the only thing I'm really doing is earning more money and spending it more reckless, having more money to spend and spending it recklessly. That was the only real difference. So that's what I had to condition. That's the realization that I had to come to. And that is, I believe, what pretty much compelled me to really start getting in there and really budgeting. And speaking in terms of my husband, and speaking in terms of the number one cause of divorce being finances. And also, there's a statistic that I think I've learned during my financial literacy course, lesson 1, but I've kind of forgotten. But I think 8 in 10 people identified that money or finances is their number one stressor. And I just, you know, just kind of learning about the implications of stress and finances and stuff like that. I just didn't want to go down that path. I didn't want, like I said, my husband to be, you know, having to live a poor quality of life due to my spending habits or whatever the case is. I didn't want myself, future children. I wanted to be able to go and do, like at this very moment, if anybody asked me, do you want to go here or there? If somebody needs money, whatever the case is, I show up. I'm able to do those things without thinking twice about it. And that was something that really was intriguing for me, more intriguing. I've always kind of had money, but any chance I got to spend it recklessly, I would. And now I save money and I invest money and I pay down debt, and I still am able to do all of those things. So I call it living my best life on a budget. But I'm still able to, you know, like I said, pay people's rent. In fact, I don't know, I've maybe paid somebody's rent before, but I distinctly remember, you know, more recently paying a friend's rent or this or that, or I send care packages to college cousins and this and that. I'm just able to do more, like the mentor trip that I just got back from. I was able to do a couple of things for them and pay for a few things to make their trip more enjoyable. It's just small things. Doesn't have to be anything big. It's just I can do these things without worry at all. I don't have to think about, oh, if I spend $30 here on somebody else or donate $30 or whatever, is that gonna make my situation, should I really be doing this? Like, I don't have any feelings of, oh no, it's just an automatic boom, I'm able to help and give. And all of that was just very intriguing for me, and the thought of that type of lifestyle was intriguing for me. Also, I was motivated by this idea of being debt free. I've always been interested in being debt free, so that was a motivating factor for me. Like I said, not worrying about finances, not stressing about finances, being able to give freely, live my best life, take trips. All of those things were what I wanted to do. And I hear people say it all the time. Oh, I really wish, I wouldn't have to worry about money, or I could live that lifestyle. And I'm like, well, you can. It's just hard work. And there has to be some behavior change, and a lot of it. And you have to stay consistent with that behavior change. And it's just, everybody can do it. It's just really hard work initially, because you have to change some things. Like for me, I had to unsubscribe from airline notifications or emails. I had to ride by restaurants and ride by some of my favorite stores and not stop in there, because that's pretty much a good chance of spending money. Honestly, working a lot allows for me to not do a lot of spending, if I'm being honest. I never go to the mall. This year I've probably gone to the mall, honestly, I would say 0 times I've been to the mall this month, and we're almost in April. I believe I went at the end of December, or if I did go in January, which I doubt, it may have been, I highly doubt I've been to the mall. But if I did, maybe it was like the very beginning of January, but I haven't been to the mall in months. So really working it, like, honestly helps to keep me out the mall, and helps to keep me from doing X, Y, and Z, if I'm being honest. And yeah, that's just pretty much what I do. I pretty much work all the time, and that prevents me from doing a lot of things. And it also helps me in the end, because working helps to earn more money for the family, and I'm able to do more with the money. So we're able to put more towards debt and save more. Although I don't, we save all of my husband's income, so I don't really contribute to saving, but I do contribute to paying down debt and that kind of thing. So I know that was a whole lot, but that was pretty much the reason, or reasons, why I decided to start budgeting. Like I mentioned before, it was pretty much my idea, something that I had to deal with, and linking up with my husband was the perfect solution, because he is able to keep me accountable and keep me from doing reckless things. So those are just some of the reasons as to why I got started. I know it was a whole mouthful, but I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. I will meet you guys back here next week on my channel to talk about the second topic, and I can't wait to talk to you guys then. So I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.